I did a performance in Washington, D.C. in 1980. Already married, had my kids, and this was, I got the call, Dina, you're going to be booked in Washington, D.C. for the Alfalfa Club. I thought, what is that? What is it, a farm group, Alfalfa Club? Never heard of it. Turns out that the Alfalfa Club is a very distinguished Washington club that past presidents have been members of. And all the, well, let me tell you who is there. I flew to Washington with my accompanist, and they were too cheap to pay for a band. Really, I wondered. You know, it was in the ballroom of the, I think one of the major hotels, and there were 600 people there. And I think they were all men at that time. Now it's men and women. And I was introduced by Senator John Glenn, and I have a wonderful picture here of he and I. After the performance, we all went up to a room, and we're actually standing there with drinks in our hands, you know. And all the people who had been, some of the people, there were too many to fit into this one room. It was very exclusive, and there were 600 guests, and the what do you call it, the head table, had 50 people at it, 50. And the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court was there, and all the admirals and generals, and President Carter's cabinet was there, and George Bush Sr. was there. It was 9 years before he became president. And you know, after this whole thing was over, they lined up and went past me and shook my hand and congratulated me. So it was a mind-blowing experience, and I remember looking out before I performed. I looked out between the curtains, and I thought, my goodness, there's, what's his name, the statesman with the funny voice, the German accent. I wasn't prepared for this. I should have gone over this. I didn't bring the seating arrangement. It's huge. There were 50 people at 12 tables each. He's been on TV, elder statesman. Anyway, Kissinger. Kissinger. My daughter remembers everything. That's why she's sitting there to prompt me. Henry Kissinger was there, and I remember, and Don was there. I took Don with me as my photographer. They said, don't tell anybody, this was in those days, the Me Too movement would hate this. Don't tell anybody that he's your husband, because it is what I looked like. You know, I was pretty cute. And you know, these people, this Washington, D.C., you know, some of them are hot to trot. So I wasn't having anything, I wasn't, you know, I was there to perform. And Don was there as my photographer. The next day, I did a performance in a townhouse, an old townhouse on I Street or something like that. I sang in the living room, and there was a whole bunch of people with their wives, and you know, in this living room, and I did some songs that I hadn't done the night before, and boy, it was like they never saw anybody do stuff like that, you know. where have you been? What have you? And they were trying to interview me and everything. And there was a kitchen in the back. I'll just tell this one thing, because Don was looking around in the dining room area of the photos of kings and famous people that were members of this Alfalfa Club. And there was a man making hot toddies in the kitchen. And Don wandered in there, and he said to him, you know, would you like a hot toddy? And we said, sure. We were both in by that time. And it turns out that this man making the hot toddies was in charge of the Atlantic during World War II. He was what's the highest in the Navy? Admiral, very famous admiral. He's in it. And Don is a World War II buff. Coming from England, when he was 7 years old, he was in the bombing of London, and his father was a fireman, putting out fires and rescuing people from the burning buildings. So that's another story. And here's this. It was a surreal, the whole thing, the night before and the day, it was a whole surreal experience. It was. Wow. And I was so fortunate to have been chosen to entertain for these people, and they were very, very appreciative. Wonderful audience.